Spectres, welcome to the Mass Effect Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with my co-host, Sam, and we are excited to do another lore-based episode for you guys. Sam, how you doing, buddy? How are things?
I'm doing great. You might notice that there's been a little bit of a change up in the background behind me. That is because we're still moving around furniture, trying to get the right feng shui of the apartment.
Mm-hmm. That's a minor race in Mass Effect, right? The feng shui.
The feng shui, yeah, the second spacefaring species of the Milky Way. Mm-hmm. Little known, but very important.
Yeah, all of their spaceships are designed very meticulously.
They're all designed to have a good flow in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all about flow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. Any of our live viewers or people watching the video after this will notice that I am wearing glasses. I am now a glasses guy. I've upgraded. I've leveled up my vision. Sort of. I don't know what else to say about that, but it's weird for me. But hey, thanks for bearing with us too. Also, Twitch viewers on getting through some of the technical difficulties. But we're ready to jump in. What are we talking about today, my friend?
So today we're going to be talking about the Salarians. We're going to be discussing, the fast-talking, hyperactive, always analytical, and sometimes squirrely race of amphibians, the Salarians.
The Salamandarians.
The Salamandarians. Mm-hmm. Definitely they look like salamanders, but they also, if there was ever a race that embodied knowledge is power, those little informative things from the 90s, then it's these clever little lizards. So we're going to be talking about them.
All right. Well, let's dive into it because I like these guys. I think they're fun.
They are Morden specifically just, I can't get over like how squirrely they are. They're just like, always talking, never taking a breath. And okay, so I think maybe we should like start with the physiological features and then like work to the sociological dynamics of the Salarian species.
Yeah, let's dig into it. Sure.
So the Salarians, like, most other intelligent races in the Milky Way, happen to be bipedal. So they stand upright on 2 feet. And there's actually kind of a lore-based explanation. There's a couple explanations in the lore for why so many of the different intelligent Milky Way species all happen to be, like two legs upright and kind of have the same body shape as a
humanoidish being. Sure, right.
Yeah. And so this is a quote directly ripped from Mass Effect Revelation, who fans of Lorecast know that I just finished listening to it, but I wanted to find a transcript because I remembered it when I was listening to it, but I needed to find the transcript. But anyway, here's the transcript of the explanation. Given that most species at the Citadel had ascended to interstellar flight through the discovery and adaptation of caches of Prothean technology on planets within the same solar system as their respective homeworlds, many anthropologists believed the Protheans had some role in evolution throughout the galaxy. Captain Anderson, however, subscribed to the most generally accepted theory that there was some evolutionary advantage to the biped form that resulted in its proliferation across the galaxy. The caches of technology were easily explained. It was only natural for the Protheans to study intelligent but primitive races that bore some similarity to themselves. The various species, such as humans, had evolved first, and then the Protheans had arrived to study them, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And so I think Anderson's take on that is probably the more logical assumption that, first species had evolved, and then maybe the Protheans chose to study them because of the similarities that they bore to the Protheans.
Right, but that evolution in general would move towards bipedalism for intelligence, or intelligent species with bipedalism. Intelligence would emerge in species with bipedalism because of that being an advantage.
Right. There was some evolutionary advantage to it. Right. And he didn't really know what it was, but he just could see that there was some advantage there.
Like this theory, the Star Trek theory. So they almost went in the direction of like Star Trek with this idea that like there was a root race that basically seeded its genes to all these different species across the the universe, right? And then that's why so many of them looked similar with like different wrinkles on their heads and things like that. That was one of their explanations I remember back from like Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I'm remembering back a long time. So if I'm not getting that 100% correct, please let me know. But I think that there is something to be said here about the benefits of two things. A thumb, the ability to have two hands that are not used to manage your movement, the efficiency of standing on your bones as opposed to your muscles, and then also the complexity of a voice box to be able to make complex sounds to develop language. I think those three things all lead towards higher levels of intelligence. But that's a whole nother topic if you want to dive into it.
I think we're probably going to have to go over like the evolution of different Milky Way species at some point. Just have like a sheer science episode, and maybe have to have like Liara on as a guest anthropologist. But basically so to give our listeners who aren't, watching live, to get them, like a kind of like a word picture. These amphibians, they had some scaly looking skin, the Salarians, a little bit, and their skin tones varied from bright red to more subdued colors like gray and green. And according to the art directors, they were actually meant as kind of a play on the cliche, the Greys, that kind of sci-fi trope of aliens.
That's so weird because they don't really look like that at all.
They don't. I think that they probably started just like the Greys, and then they're like, okay, but what if we change this? And what if we change this and this and this and this? I can see it, I guess, with the big eyes, because they have very large eyes. And they have two large eyes, slanted and front facing. They blink upward, though, not downward, which is similar to some amphibian species on planet Earth. And they can also see along the ultraviolet spectrum. So that's pretty interesting. That's something that I didn't remember really learning in the game, but during the research for this show, I had found it out.
Some species on Earth can do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think monitor lizards do that. They blink upward and not downward. And some reptile species even have multiple layers of eyelids, too.
Yeah, like crocodiles.
Exactly. And because of their unique eyes, there has been, I suppose, some miscommunication with humans. Because sometimes Salarians do this thing where they roll their eyes. But it's not in social disgust or anything like that. It's not because you said something that they're like, oh, what a bleeping idiot, Right. It's actually just because they need to moisten their eyes. So their eyes are just getting dry and irritated.
Right. And so it's kind of like a dog licking its nose. It's not like it's cleaning its nose. It's just its nose needs to stay moist. And so it licks its nose every so often.
And imagine taking offense at that.
Yeah, like, oh my God, why are you picking your nose? And it's like, no, that's just what we do. That's how our faces work.
The thing we do.
Yeah, it's how our faces work. Or like a species that doesn't need to blink, and we blink.
That would be creepy.
Right? But like we blink and they don't. And like, yeah.
That would be very creepy. I think I'd be very off-put by that. Which is hilarious because there's a evolutionary reason to that too. We blink less when we're in the fight or flight mode. So that's why I would be off put by that. But as for Salarians' heads, so think of the classic Hollywood aliens that I already mentioned with the big craniums. Right. But instead, they also have two curved horns on top. And usually the horns curve toward each other. There is one notable exception to that, and that's Dr. Morden Solis. It looks like one of his horns actually got chopped off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I can remember if there was ever an in-game explanation for what happened to his horn.
No, but you're right. That's one of those things that I notice when I look at him. And
yeah, he's different from a lot of other Salarians.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a design decision, though, in order to make him stand out among other characters that you see.
Considering the facial scars that he has, I think it was. because he also has some facial scars that are pretty prominent, whereas other Salarians don't really have that. Not even the Salarian specters.
I think that there's probably something similar with a lot of the alien races and the ones that you are companions with that helps you identify them as your companion. Not just the fact that you put them in a certain outfit or they have a name over their head or whatever, but like you see their face and you go like, oh, that's not just a Salarian. That's my Salarian. My Salarian. That was a hit back in 1979.
That is the scientist Salarian.
My Salarian. My jokes are landing so well tonight.
I was going to say, are you going to release an album here soon?
Yeah.
Because you should think of it.
Yes. I'm going to release a Mass Effect album where I do popular songs from the last 5 decades about each of the characters. Oh my God. All right, save us. What else do we know about Salarians?
So Salarian body types, and this is something that the games didn't really do a good job to even depicting. I mean, they didn't mention it, but they don't really do a good job in the art, I think, illustrating the point that Salarians are supposed to be much taller and skinnier than human beings. They're almost all supposed to be above 6 foot and sometimes up to 6'5". I think Morden himself is 6'4" or 6'5". He's supposed to be very, very tall. And as far as I can remember from the games, they don't really seem that tall. That is because of their metabolism. Their height and their lack of meat on their bones is due to a hyperactive metabolism, to the point, and it's so hyperactive, it's to the point where Salarians only sleep an hour a night. That's it.
Wow.
So I thought of Elf, the movie Elf, when I first heard that, because I'm like, oh yeah, did you sleep last night? Yeah, I got a full 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like what? Yeah. And a lot of other lore, elves in general, like Dungeons and Dragons, elves don't need to sleep. They just meditate, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're not elves, but like an hour a night of sleep. Which is odd, being that they're so intelligent, because you don't sleep for reasons of metabolism. You sleep because your brain is taking time to consolidate the things that you've experienced and learned throughout the day. And it's like, at least this is the most current theory I know about this, is that it's in sleeping and especially in dreaming where we consolidate our memories. And so that's why we as a species sleep more than other species, other mammals that are even similar to us in a lot of other ways, or larger or whatever. It's because our brains are so important and complex.
It's interesting. It's interesting you bring up memory, because Salarians also have a photographic memory. So they never forget really anything. Mm-hmm. They memorize their family, their clan members up to the millions. So their memory is absolutely insane, and the speed at which they can recall those facts is also insane. And we'll get into how that kind of fits into how they interact with the galaxy a little bit later. But their hyperactive metabolism, according to the lore, might account for their kind of speedy development as a species. They were the second species to discover the Citadel, but it could also serve as the reason for their fast talking and very fast thinking. Mm-hmm. According to the Codex, the Salarians perceive other races to be sluggish or dull-witted. So that comes off in how they talk to everyone else, I think. Especially Shepard.
Yeah, right. So
I'd love to hear a conversation between a Salarian and an Elcor.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. The last point you have here is that their lifespan is only 40 years. And this is another theory that they have, in that most mammals on our planet have a very similar lifespan when it comes to the speed of their internal activity, meaning like how fast their heart rate is and how their bodies work. So smaller, faster, more active animals tend to live a shorter amount of time, but they still live for roughly a similar number of heartbeats. It's as if larger animals and then also live longer, but our hearts beat more slowly. It's as if on some level, we're all perceiving the world at different rates based on our internal biology and the way that we process information and the way that we interact with the world around us. So when it comes to something like that, it would make sense that something like a Salarian is just moving at a faster rate than the rest of us.
Yeah, it's like the Salarians are Quicksilver from X-Men, and we're all just everyone normal.
Right, like baby Quicksilver though. Like they're just like, if we're moving at like 100% rate, they're moving at like 130%. Like they're just turned up a little bit, which means that they're going to get to the end of the race, meaning the end of their life, faster than we do. So I mean, I guess you could even extrapolate it and say like if by this time in the span of human existence, let's say the average person lives to 80 years old, right? Easy number to do. They only live to 40. Do they move twice as fast through life? Are they thinking and reacting, and are they just processing things twice as quickly? Potentially.
I think it's possible. But I think the interesting thing is, like, if you extrapolate it to the opposite extent, the Asari have much longer lifespans. So does that mean that they're moving through life and thinking 10 times slower than human beings?
Right. They don't seem to be. That's not
true.
Right.
No, that's not true. They seem pretty comparable.
But maybe that's just a difference in their design, especially because they were probably more influenced than, say, the Salarians or the humans were. If the Salarians and the humans were more naturally influenced by evolution, then it would make sense that they're both kind of on the same, they're fitting into the same equation. And the Salarians are just moving at twice the rate on the same basic equation. Whereas, oh crap, you just said their name. The
Asari?
The Asari, words just fall on my head, especially as it gets later. And we do this podcast starting at 10:30 at night. The Asari are maybe by design able to move at a more human rate, but for a lot longer period of time. They're just fundamentally different on that level.
Right. And they were purposefully changed, so I'm glad that you brought that up. They were purposefully changed by the Protheans. I don't think that such evidence exists for the Salarians. Right. The Protheans definitely monitored the Salarians. They knew about their existence. But according to Javik, the last known Prothean, the entire Prothean Empire kind of viewed the Salarians as little lizards who might make a good appetizer.
You're right.
That's the extent of how Javik viewed them. Yeah. So they viewed them very primitively, and I don't think that there's evidence to suggest anyway that the Protheans had as much of a hand in shaping the evolution of the Salarians as much as they did the Asari. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, that should kind of stand as a testament to how technologically advanced and intelligent and fast-moving the Salarian species is, that they ultimately became the second to find the Citadel.
Right. So here's another concept. There's another concept about our own development and progress as humans, that people don't change opinions as they get older. It's not like progress happens because people learn more information and change and become, say, more enlightened or more liberal or whatever as they get older. And in fact, that's usually not the case. Usually, as people get older, they get more stuck in their ways and they become more conservative, and they want the world to look more like the way it was when they were younger, or at least the way they perceived the world to have been like when they were younger, right? And the theory goes that progress really only happens when the group in power dies off. So, for example, let's just look at progress when it came to something like slavery in America. It wasn't that all of a sudden come the end of the 1800s, a bunch of people changed their mind about slavery. It was more that people who were hard and fast for slavery died off, and younger people who grew up in a world that was more against slavery continue to be more against slavery. And that's how progress works. It's not like my parents had computers and when they were younger adults, when I was a child, and they were, parents of children. But that doesn't mean that they're more comfortable with them now because they had it as younger adults. But me being a child having a computer means that I'm going to be comfortable with computers for my entire life because I'm just used to it. I grew up with it, right? But any new devices that come out, say like now, I'm still going to be uncomfortable with when I'm older. And those things won't really take root until my generation passes away, or at least won't really be understood by the ruling class. I guess we should say that, until the ruling class passes away. So to wrap this up, in a system where every 40 years you have a completely different set of people, that's going to progress a lot faster than in a system where you have 70 years or 80 years or 100 or 1,000 years. Society is going to progress faster inherently. And we did previously, when people had shorter lifespans, that like scientific progress and technology has increased in speed, but the acceptance of those things is slowing down because people are living longer.
And that makes sense. And it also makes sense if you extrapolate it. The thought just came to me while we were talking about the Krogans also tend to live around 1,000 years long. And, you know, cultural uplifting notwithstanding, we'll get there in the Salarians' own episode, is that the Krogans culturally didn't really advance past the atomic age for us, like the humanity's atomic age. In fact, they ruined their planet from nuclear warfare because of that. And I think that it's fair to assess that as a cultural failure on the Krogans' part.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's one of the theories why we haven't officially experienced any activity from alien races at all. It's like one of the theories is that, like, according to the numbers, if you play the numbers, there's enough habitable worlds out there and the universe is old enough that there should be alien races all over our galaxy that have been around a lot longer than we have. So why haven't we come in contact with any of them? Why don't we have any evidence that they're, even just radio signals coming from their planets or whatever? Why don't we have evidence of them existing? And one of the theories is that every biologically evolved species that gets intelligent enough to reach the atomic age will eventually destroy itself because we don't evolve socially fast enough to deal with the kind of damage that one terrible leader could possibly pose on destroying an entire race or entire planet, right? Like, we don't evolve fast enough socially. And that's why we have all the conflict that we do. Which
it is pretty terrifying.
It's terrifying.
When you consider the fact that several billion people are effectively held hostage because of the potential nuclear whims of
just a few people. Yeah. And we still emotionally act as if we are living in a tribal society. That's why we have so many us versus them situations. That's why politicians can use the fear of the outsider in order to influence the, what's okay with the masses. This is why the majority of conflicts that happened over the 20th century happened and were influenced by these kinds of things. Even though we are in a global society, we still act like a tribal people. We only trust the people that we know, and we're very nationalist. If you're not part of us, you're against us. And we need to evolve past that, or we're just going to destroy ourselves.
The Krogan are a shining example of populism and why populism doesn't work. Yeah. That's a hot take from yours truly. If you want to hit me up about all the benefits of populism and why it's a viable political ideology for the future, my Twitter.
Yeah. Deep thoughts, man. We're covering some really fun topics on this one. Well, anything else you want to hit before we move to the mid break and then take on some other stuff? When we come back from the mid break, I have what is becoming a trend in our species episodes where we're going to talk about Salarian reproduction. Woohoo! Reproduction, everyone's favorite, very taboo, and it seems to be with a number of species. So I guess we'll go to the mid break for now, and we'll tantalize that topic for after the break. All right, here we go.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
I am sovereign, and this station is mine. I like the sound of that.
So we have some really fun news, guys. We have launched our Patreon. Patreon.com/Mass Effect Lorecast is now available for all of you to sign up. There's a bunch of different tiers. You can help support the show, which goes directly to both me and Sam and being able to do these episodes. And we would love if you would just buy us a cup of coffee or something. That would be awesome. Or, maybe me some orange soda, because orange soda is the freaking best. I don't know why I'd ever stopped drinking orange soda. But yeah, so if you want to chip in $1 or $5 or $10 or $25 or whatever, go check it out. There are a bunch of tiers with a bunch of really cool things that you can get. Early episodes, ad-free episodes, discounts for the store. I'm going to have some shirts, some Mass Effect shirts up on our store. We've been tossing around some ideas for different shirt designs. Potentially a shirt that goes out to patrons once a month. That might be a thing that we add at some point. It's not there yet, but it might be something we add. And then even the ability to join us on the end of the month episodes. And we're doing our first end of the month episode a week from right now. It is the 23rd while we record this. In a week, Sunday night, this coming weekend on the 30th, we will be doing our first patron episode, and we already have 2 tier 4 patrons that will be joining us, So Thanatoasted and Kather Noxblood. So thank you to everybody who signed up already. We already have 8 patrons. This didn't even go up in an episode yet, and people just responded from Twitter and on the Discord and started signing up. You guys are nuts. So thank you very, very much. You have any thoughts on this, Sam? Did you want to chime in with anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm incredibly humbled. I'm incredibly thankful and appreciative to everyone who would like to show their support with the Patreon. As we've said before, this podcast is always going to remain free. You're never going to have to pay to listen to it. But there are those benefits that we mentioned about becoming a patron. And just, any little bit that you want to contribute to the patron, it's immensely appreciated. It helps us kind of continue doing what we're doing. And we already love what we're doing. So if you want to just even tell your friends, if you don't want to, become a patron on Patreon, just tell your friends about the Lorecast, and that's more than enough for us.
Yeah, every little bit helps. I do podcasting full time now. I've been fortunate enough to have people support my other podcasts, the Fallout Lorecast, the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, Cyberpunk Lorecast, D&D Lorecast, all these other podcasts that I do. I've been fortunate enough to do that. I'm still working to get to the point where I'm earning as much as I was with a full-time job, but it's because of people like you guys being here every week, listening, even just sharing with your friends, leaving a review, any of that stuff, and now signing up on Patreon that allows me to be able to do that. And I know Sam appreciates it as well. It's nice to be able to do the thing that you love doing and spend the time to really do a good job at it, like that. It really does make a difference. But speaking of reviews, we also have 2 new reviews that came in the last week. We have one from, and I love this, Alex. I love your style, buddy, from Canada. This is the title of, how it has like a title and then it has like all the info. Well, this is his title. Been a fan of Mass Effect since day one, but these guys still teach me stuff. 5 stars. An amazing podcast and lorecast. That was his description. So it was like reversed. So like all the big info is in the title, which I love that because it's like, it's all bold. So thank you, Alex. That's awesome. And hello to America's Hat. How is it up there? I hope it's not too hot yet because it's getting hot down here. And then we have Nate2566 from the United States who writes, awesome, 5 stars. Perfect podcast for veterans or first timers of the Mass Effect games. Really held me over for the past month waiting for the Legendary Edition to be released. Thank you both for all the great content. Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad you found us. And thank you for taking the time to leave a review. It really does help. People read these when they're searching for shows, and these kinds of reviews tell them things that we can't tell them about the show and that you guys can tell them from the, standpoint of a listener. And it really, really does help. So thank you so much. And that's Who'll the Fool in chat. That's you. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Welcome to the live stream. That's amazing. So those are our reviews. Now let's move on to our, we have another Shepherd, right? Oh, wait, we had a question in chat. I just want to put this up on the screen real fast. A little hint of what the t-shirts might look like there. That might be some of the art style we're playing with. We're thinking about doing some silhouettes with some quotes or some words that make sense for the silhouette of the character, that kind of stuff, with maybe a big logo, like or a small logo on the back or on the sleeve or something like that. We'll figure it out. We're playing with some of those ideas. But let's move to our Shepherd. Who do we have this week?
Absolutely. So we have a shepherd coming from, and now I'm pronouncing a Twitter handle, so you're going to have to forgive me, but it's coming from Bobcat Bonks on Twitter. And this is John Shepard, Commander John Shepard. He is a soldier, Earthborn, and sole survivor. His alignment is full Paragon, and in Bobcat Bonks' description, he says, in Shepard's eyes, the people he saved are always the top priority. So I think that's some pretty good color commentary about how his Shepard perceives, what's important and what's not. So the key decisions that Commander John Shepard has already made were that he kept Rex alive. He saved Ashley on Vermeer. Sorry, Caden.
Sorry, Caden.
That's totally a trend. That's meta.
Yes. Sorry, Caden. You're just not as interesting.
Yeah, and what a shame, because Caden becomes from what I've heard, one of the best squad mates in Mass Effect 3. But Commander John Shepard also. You might never know, but I mean,
I never know.
I'm committed to saving Caden this playthrough because I never do.
Yeah,
so,
I'm like, he's definitely not on my list of people to save, but okay.
Every time I talk about Caden and I acknowledge how kind of milquetoast he is in the first Mass Effect, I kind of feel bad for Raphael Sbarge, who voice acts Caden, because it's not entirely it's not his fault at all. It's just the writing,
right? I think
that Raphael Sbarge does a great job, but it's just that's who Caden is. That's the character. But still, I don't know. I kind of feel a level of empathy. But anyway, Commander John Shepard romanced Ashley in Mass Effect 1. He stayed loyal to her in Mass Effect 2. And he's planning on rekindling the romance in Mass Effect 3. So there's a nice romantic, hopeless romantic story for you there. Commander John Shepard stays celibate in Mass Effect 2 so that he can rekindle with Ashley. The cockles of my heart are just totally warmed up.
Cockles.
So Commander John Shepard also saved the Rachni Queen and destroyed the Collector base, quote, because we don't need it, and, quote, to piss off the Elusive Man.
Fair enough.
I can't think of any better reasons to do it. Bobcat Bonks is still currently playing Mass Effect 3, so he said that he hasn't gotten here yet, but he plans to, A, cure the genophage, and B, destroy the Reapers.
All
yes.
Right. Well, good luck.
My favorite ending.
Good luck.
And we actually also just did a poll on our Twitter recently.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, so
I haven't looked at this. How did it come out? I haven't seen this yet.
So I need to pull it up again, but I'm just going to go from memory right now, and maybe fact check me. Is that we did a poll about hey, of our followers, what ending did you choose? And it turned out, as I saw, that 68% of poll respondents picked the destroy or red ending. Yes, that
is currently where it's at. Destroy, red ending, 68%. The next highest was synthesis, the green ending, 24%. The next one was refused or rejected choices, 8%. And nobody in our poll chose the control ending, the blue one.
So yeah, I guess I get that, because it's like the control ending is so obviously what the Elusive Man wanted, and I think it's obvious that the Elusive Man became indoctrinated. So I kind of commend also the people who were bold enough to refuse and reject all the choices, because good for you. I mean, you people looked at the Star Child, the Catalyst, and said, "Hey, buddy, why don't you F off? I don't like any of your choices. I don't like any of your choices, and we're just going to win this war conventionally." And then for anyone who doesn't know, spoilers alert, when you do that, it doesn't end well for Shepard. You basically just lose. That's game over, and it's like better luck next cycle. And then some beacon that Liara leaves is supposed to help them along. And that's it. That's the end of your game.
It's kind of like the suicide ending in Cyberpunk. But I won't go into that because that's spoilers if you haven't played Cyberpunk. I don't think that's a spoiler. Like there is an option for choosing suicide but I won't tell you what that means. But yeah, that I chose that one. That was not the right choice. I'll just leave you there. None of them are really the right choice, but it's definitely the worst of the choices. Well, cool. Well, I think we need to get back to the rest of the show. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Spit it out, or are you trying to build suspense?
You're so dense, sir. Obviously, I do not know as much about human relationships as I thought.
All right, so here we are. The note says, return to discussion of Salarian biosocial features. I feel like that's something that like the computer would say, you know?
I have been called cold and calculating before, so that works.
Sam's the one who puts together the show notes. Yeah.
Hence why I picked Ruthless for my most recent Shepherd playthrough. That's my psych profile, Ruthless.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think mine is too. And we'll have to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. But yeah, so we're getting to the sexy Salarian part. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, for all of you that really got it bad for the Salarians, you're gonna want to perk your ears up and lean forward in your chairs right now.
I mean, look at those faces. How could you not?
I adjust myself.
How could you not? Oh, ooh.
How could you not get it on for the Grace?
I mean, look at that. Look at that face.
Oh, Dalatras. Oh. Their reproduction is somewhat unsurprising in some ways, and in others surprising. They are like amphibians, and they lay clutches of eggs. But unfertilized ones become males, and fertilized ones become females. However, because of strict social rules, most clutches are prevented from being fertilized, which makes upward of 90% of the species male. That's kind of a big deal.
This is super weird because they have sexual and asexual reproduction at the same time, and that's what determines gender. I don't know of any other creatures. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not heard of this being a thing, at least with any Earth species. I know that some creatures can choose to reproduce asexually if they can't find sexual reproduction. I know that that's a possibility, but the idea of that being the thing that determines gender is interesting because that means that every male has the same genetic code origin, or at least all of the male's genetic code matches the mother's genes directly, even if they don't have the same XY, XX, or I don't know if that even works with Salarians, but
well, it's interesting that you say that because they have a specific hatching ritual too. And this hatching ritual has to be attended by the Dalatras of their most local governmental body. So whatever is the most local, whether that be a fiefdom or, a nation.
The post office.
The post office.
If you're in a remote place and the postal worker is the highest level of government,
then God so help you, because that person is going to be a gatekeeper for sure. But the Dalatrases of both the mother and the father have to be present if the offspring is going to be female. However, that's so rare because these strict social rules dictate that only the clutches are only going to be, fertilized about 10% of the time. Here's exactly what the wiki and the codex state. Ancient social codes determine who gets to fertilize eggs, which produces more daughters to continue bloodlines. Fertilization generally occurs after months of negotiation between the parents' clans, and it's done for purposes of political and dynastic alliance. No Salarian would imagine defying this code.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, that matches some things in our culture, but clearly there's other things in our culture that influence sexual reproduction that aren't necessarily based on, making plans with the neighbors,
Like, hey, Bob, I wanted to get your opinion on the kids that me and my wife are going to have.
Right.
That'd be a bit weird.
Yeah. What do you say we're in business together? What do you say we make some kids together? Okay. Like,
well, it's
continue
interesting
the
that you
species.
equate it to a business partnership, because that's kind of exactly how the Codex refers to it. Because the Salarian reproduction is kind of viewed as a necessity. It's just they view it as a duty. And in fact, Dr. Morton Solis tells us in Mass Effect 2 that for Salarians, sex is not hormone based. There's no hormones driving their behavior there. So it's not passionate. It's not an act and they don't pretend like it's an act of love. It's just an act of necessity. That's how they see it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's even
because of that,
pleasurable, or if it's just a thing that you can do.
It must just be a thing that they do, which might be why if you try to act like you're coming on to Morden, he kind of brushes it off.
Because it doesn't make any sense. He probably doesn't have the language to even understand it, or at least not in an emotional level.
I think he says something along the lines of like, don't get me wrong, Commander, if I were human, you'd be my type, or something like that.
Right. It's just very polite, but doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Soften the blow a little bit. Definitely no pun intended there, but So speaking of romanticism, there's no concept of it in Salarian social realms. There's only something like friendship. And because of that, they don't really have any ideation of love. Love in quotation marks, because it's not associated with reproduction, but it's also just not present in their society. And when you start to think about, a society that doesn't understand or practice the concept of love, you really I think, at least for me, you start to think that's a totally alien society, right?
Yeah. Well,
because so many things that we do are based around love.
The question that brings to mind is, we use the word love for a lot of things, and other cultures historically have had multiple words that all can translate to love in English. So there's like romantic love, there's familial love, there's brotherly love, there's passionate love. There's different ways to use that. Does this mean that like all versions of that don't exist? Like, do parents not love their children? Or is it more of there is just no romantic love? So there's no like, oh my God, I need to be with you. And so I will kill the bad guy and save you because I'm so in love, like with the princess, or whatever. That's a terrible example. But, or is there just duty? Like, I am committed to raising my children. It is my duty. But it's not, oh, I love my kids. That could be a difference too. I'm committed to my friends because they are my friends, and that's what I do. That's what you do with your friends. You tell them the truth and you follow through with your word because you are somebody of your word. And so that is your duty, but you don't love your friends. Like sometimes you just, you're just like, oh man, I love hanging out with these guys. They're the best. How does that work?
And, I think, I have a lot of friends from different cultures, and I've studied a few languages enough to know that English is really one of the very few languages that love is an all-encompassing word. For example, in some cultures, they really don't, parents don't tell their children that they love them. And that's not like they're bad parents. It's just not part of it's not part of the jargon. It's not part of their colloquial dictionary.
Right.
They have words for it, I suppose, but it's just not practiced the way that it's expected in Western cultures.
Right.
And then even for Western European languages like French, there is a word, I love you, je t'aime, but there's also other ways to say that. Right. And there's varying levels of strength too, because I could also say je l'aime, I like it, meaning I like a croissant. Right. But
you wouldn't say that to your romantic partner. At least not in a romantic context. You might just say, yeah, I like you. Yeah, I like you, but I also love you. You could say it that way. But you wouldn't, if they said, I love you, you wouldn't respond with the other. Because that would be like, ooh, you shouldn't say it back. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that one hurts. But if you're Salarian, you don't have to worry about that. Because there's none of that involved. It's, how would you like to lay a clutch of eggs and I'll fertilize? How scandalous.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, okay.
know?
Yeah, let's shake hands on that. And okay.
Well, first, let's get our entire extended families involved.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, someone in chat, who was it? I can't find it now. Oh, Mark 10 Gamer says, why does this remind me of arranged marriages? That's because it is.
Yeah, it is.
They're not marriages per se, but they're arranged reproductive rights, which I can't remember the episode, but it does remind me of something in Futurama right now. It's Kip in Futurama. Yeah. So it's kind of funny that the Salarians are similar to that. But there is a lot that would be different in a society, given how the absence of the concept of love would just alter its course versus humanity or Asari, because the Asari definitely feel love. And their arts have been influenced by it. Their political dealings have been influenced by it, very similar to humanity. But the Salarians have advanced all the same with the absence of love. Now let's back up a second to re-examine the fact that 90%, upwards of 90% of the Salarian species is male. Mm-hmm. What then does that mean? What place do the females hold in Salarian society? Well, they're rare, obviously, and they're often kept isolated on their own homeworlds. This is starting to sound like an oppressive tale, right? However, it's not. The females in Salarian society are almost always in political leadership positions known as Dalatrasses, or what would be a Salarian matriarch. The males aren't kept from power in other spheres like business or academia or the military, but they rarely ever hold political power. The only exception to this that I know of is Councillor Valern, or Valern. He's the Salarian council person in 2183, i.e. Mass Effect 1. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way that their political power is divvied up between the two genders, where it's like 99.9% of the time, a political leader is going to be female.
Well, it seems like they've figured out how to leverage their control of a very rare resource for their own power. Does that make sense?
I guess. I think that it's kind of like not a choice almost of the females in society. I don't
feel they're expected to go into politics.
Right. Because there's so few of them and they need leaders. There needs to be a Dalatras at every level of government, by the way, in Salarian society. So that presents the need for enough of a political obligation that if a female were to shirk that obligation, I'm not sure what would happen. Would they be exiled? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But they purposefully create females. Think of it that way. Mm-hmm. The Salarians purposefully have daughters. And they have a very specific amount, and those daughters are the product of political and dynastic alliances. Right. So think of like Napoleonic Europe or Victorian England, where we're talking about these backroom deals that are being made. But in this case, the object of those deals are offspring. Mm-hmm. So their government is called the Salarian Union, but as we've discussed, it's more of a matriarchal dynastic system,
right? And
the structure from smallest to largest organizational plane is fiefdom, barony, duchies. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Or is it
duchies?
How do you pronounce it? Duchies?
Yeah.
Planets and marches or colonization clusters. And each one of those is ruled by a single Dalatras.
Interesting. So it's like, this is a very unique system. Like I can't think of anything similar to this in our society. I mean, there have been societies that were matriarchal. That is a thing. But the tie for matriarchal and the women being a rare resource that are planned because of political reasons in order to basically create the next potential ruler and political leader is a spin. It's a spin. It's kind of a spin on trying to plan the offspring of the ruler to have sons so that dynasty can continue, but it's flipped. which is interesting.
And then it's almost like you've instituted a level of federalism in it too.
Yeah.
Because federalism dictates that different levels of government supremacy. So national government holds supremacy over state government, and state government holds supremacy over local governments. So there's a level of federalism going on here, which is interesting because they're also dynasties.
Right.
And the closest thing in history that I can equate it to might be feudal Japan.
Okay.
Because feudal Japan had the shogunate and the local warlords.
Right. Which were all dynasties.
That might be the closest thing that I can think of.
Yeah. They were all their own dynasties. Yeah. Feudalism in general has that kind of thing going for it. But you're right. In Japan, it was all based around family groups. And the family groups were more contractual than they were necessarily biological connections. That's interesting. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so across all of these governmental levels, there's familial clans, and there's circles within those clans. And the first circle averages about 100 members, and that includes siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, immediate family members. And the next circle is second cousins, extended family, etc. And that one can get up to 1,000 plus members. Uh-huh. And according to the wiki, the fourth and fifth circles of these family clans can reach in the millions of different people. And the Salarians remember everyone's name.
Right, because their brains are designed to do that. That's nuts. That's crazy.
What a family reunion that would be.
You're my seventh cousin 27 times removed on the aunt's side of my uncle so-and-so. You're like, oh my God.
Right, and they only live 40 years, so it's like a family reunion every time.
Right. Jeez.
And everyone remembers everyone else's business. Like, there's no secrets, right? Because everyone always remembers it. They never forget.
Right. I wonder if that means they just don't even have to talk about it.
That would be something to behold. Well, according to the wiki, when it comes to secrets, Salarians have two different types of secrets. And I didn't write this in the show notes. It's just something that I, found out when I was researching it. But basically, there's one type of secret that the Salarians hold where, given nonverbal cues, the other Salarian, the recipient of this knowledge, can determine whether or not this is an appropriate point of in inquisitive thought. Should this pique my curiosity? Should I dig any further? And then they will, because they're information based. Knowledge is power, right? So they'll pursue that. But then there's other nonverbal cues that signal the second type of secret, which is this secret is dangerous, and it will be dangerous if it got out. So, don't probe. But I'm telling you this for a purpose.
It's, you know what it is? It's this face right here. Our listeners are going to be like, what face did he make? You guys know the face. It's don't share this. That face.
Yeah, like
that's the sound
if you
of the
share
face.
this, I know it's going to be you because you're the only one I told.
Right, like. Yep, that's it.
And that's just a little aside for Salarian secrets. And apparently, the body language that Salarians portray in order to convey which type of secret it is so precise to Salarians that it's almost impossible to fake that. Like, it's like a human trying to convincingly fake a yawn. Like, have you ever seen someone try to convincingly fake a yawn? It's you can tell.
Yeah,
I mean, you can just tell.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, that kind of covers their governmental levels, their familial clans, but it doesn't really address how Salarians interact with the galaxy.
Okay.
We already mentioned that they're the second species to discover the Citadel.
Right.
And, big surprise, they did so by standing on the shoulders of giants, Prothean giants, namely.
Right.
But generally now, and since they've discovered the Citadel, they've served as the intelligence or clandestine arm of the Council. And they've also served the same role in other nefarious organizations like the Eclipse Gang or the Shadow Brokers agents.
Which makes sense because they hold on to information.
Right. They're like information prone.
Walking
they're just
recordings.
Totally,
yeah, they just remember things. Yeah, totally.
They are the surveillance race.
Right.
And that's kind of what they do. They use that to their advantage. And because of their non-linear thinking ability and their affinity for research and information gathering, coupled with their photographic memory, that just makes them so good at being, secret agents. It makes them so good at all types of monitoring activity and surveillance and things like that.
And you can't seduce them.
Right. You can't seduce them.
And that happens in spy movies all the time. They can't be seduced, though. I mean, I guess you could seduce them with like power or money, but you can't do it sexually, at least.
There's got to be at least one thing in the lore about some Asari trying to like
seduce a Salarian.
Get a Salarian to spill his beans,
How about I buy you another drink? Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I'll take another drink. Why don't we go back to my room? I don't know. I'm comfortable here. Is your room more comfortable than this place right here? Like it's just like totally just over his head. Like just doesn't get it at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have snacks in your room?
Do you have snacks?
Gluten free.
Do you have cable? I'd love to watch the game.
That's like I gotta look to see if there are any Salarians in Korra's Den in Mass Effect 1.
Right. Like
because
why
if there are. Or if there are any Salarians around the clubs at all. Because,
I don't think there are.
Oh, why wouldn't there be?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure there's not. That's funny.
That's like, imagine like a Salarian bachelor party.
Right? Like, I mean, it's what it is it's an email. It's an email. Please, everybody note, I've signed up for this new contract in order to create another child. Our congratulations ceremony will be on this date. I hope you can attend. Like, that's it.
Superb. Sounds efficient for him.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot to unpack with Salarian spies and their weaknesses. I'm sure that they must have their own. But the Salarian military kind of embodies this creed where they believe that a war should be won before it begins. And that's according to the lore. I'm not paraphrasing here. That's actually according to the lore. And when I heard this, my first thought was Sun Tzu, because it sounds just like Sun Tzu's ideology. I think it's straight out of the Art of War. Yeah,
don't ever go into a battle that you haven't already decided you can win, or something like that.
Right. Most battles are won before they're even fought.
Right.
And Salarian military doctrine also dictates that they are huge proponents of the preemptive strike. So striking before your opponent can even retaliate, or you hit them first. That's the point.
Yeah, shock and awe, baby. Shock and awe.
Shock and awe. And, W would love them.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. George W. Bush would be huge fans of Salarians. Actually,
yet one of the furthest people from being a Salarian themselves.
I know you're alive. So if you're out there and you're listening to our Lorecast, please do let me know if you're a fan of the Salarians.
You know what they say, fool me once, then fool me twice. Whatever.
Fool me twice. Unfathomable.
Yeah, right. Whatever that quote is.
That'd be an amazing t-shirt, wouldn't it? Yeah. You get a George W. quote and it's Salarian Spectre on there. They have in the wiki they have it stated, in every war the Salarians have fought, they struck first and without warning. Also terrifying.
Yeah, totally.
Because you never know when they're going to strike first. But it also kind of makes me it harkens back to that feudal Japanese inspiration the writers might have gotten when creating the Salarian species, because the Japanese in a few different wars have struck first and without warning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, without warning is very arguable, especially when it comes to Pearl Harbor.
Sure.
Very arguable. However, it doesn't mean that they didn't draw inspiration from those historical events.
Sure, totally.
They also have their own version of the Spectres, kind of. It's called the STG, the Special Tasks Group. And of all the different military groups that might be indispensable to the lore, the STG is one of them. They are responsible for, this is their mission statement, they're responsible for monitoring developing situations and taking action without the shackles of law or rules of engagement to hinder them. And that's their official mission statement. However, they should stand out to Mass Effect fans because they're also the ones who uplifted the Krogan and they struck first, crippling Krogan infrastructure and causing planetary blackouts during the Krogan rebellions. They're also the group who developed the genophage. This is all the same group.
Yeah, right.
And the Alliance is kind of well aware of how skilled the Salarians are at espionage. And they consistently find Salarian agents, malware, and ongoing cyber operations against the Alliance. Like, this is another council species, and they're monitoring them, and they're leading cyber ops against the Alliance. And so, and that never changes. So that should kind of like prove how much of a second-rate species humanity is to the council, by the way, because they have a council race that's leading these things against the Alliance well into Mass Effect 3, I think.
Yeah.
And nothing is done. But anyway, about the STG, there's one notable member. That's Dr. Morden Solis. He's a squad mate that you can pick up in Mass Effect 2. He is a lot of people's favorite scientist Salarian. If you haven't yet uncovered the reason why I mentioned the descriptors in that order, it's because Morden sings a wonderful little tune in Mass Effect 2, but just make sure that you're talking to Morden a lot in Mass Effect 2, because you will discover some incredible Easter eggs, especially if you're a fan of musicals. And in fact, it was actually because of the STG that the Council created the Spectres themselves. The STG's operations during the Krogan rebellions were so effective, what the Council deemed effective at crippling the Krogan rebellions, the preemptive strikes that they led right off the bat, that they said, we should probably create our own special tactics and reconnaissance group, and we'll name them the Spectres.
This seems like a good idea.
Huh. Exactly.
Huh.
And so it shouldn't come as any surprise. Most Spectres are Turian and Salarian.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And so, you just kind of combine that the military with the dynastic tradition and the federalism plus clan type of sociological aspect. And it feels a lot like writers drew some inspiration from pre-industrial Japan, but also pre-industrial China, because there was that dynastic tradition there as well. I don't know. What do you think, Tom? I mean, I don't want to get too much into a deep conversation about, what race relates to which nationality in real life.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't think any of them are a direct analogy. They draw from characteristics of multiple different things and historical things. I mean, I think that's one of the things we've been realizing as we go through each of these different races, is that they draw from the events, draw from specific historical things, but not any one historical thing, just the kinds of things that happen in certain places and times. The different races have characteristics that are more similar to certain cultures, but they're not just that one culture. They're not just a, alien version of, pre-industrialized China. Like, that would be wrong. It's not, right? But there are similarities, which is cool. I think that, anything, and even if they're not intentional, any type of creation, anytime you write anything, you are subconsciously drawing from the things that you know of, or you're taking something, and twisting it and turning it in a direction that it maybe is brand new. Like this whole, situation with how they have children and how they have to, be intentional about having daughters, and how those daughters hold a specific role in society. Like that is going to have similarities to certain things, but yet is still unique and different in its own way. There's no way to create something that has no connection to anything. Like that's just not possible. So that's my thoughts on it.
I wonder because, BioWare is a Canadian studio, so they're very much westernized and they're Western. I wonder how much of the writing process, because they already said that Salarians were modeled after the Greys. So that kind of leads me to think that the Salarians were one of the first alien species that the writers had come up with.
Potentially, yeah.
That being said, if you're creating an alien species and you want them to seem alien, so not familiar,
right?
We're going to use alien in terms of not familiar,
right?
Then wouldn't you pick the culture that you can think of that exists, well, if you can think of it, it's because it exists in some form. Wouldn't you pick elements of a culture that you find the least familiar?
Right. Something that's farther from the things that you're used to. Right. So, yeah.
And so for Western cultures, the least familiar cultures would be Eastern, I think.
Right. Yeah. As you get further away,
it kind of makes sense.
Geographically, cultures tend to have less and less in common with each other. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think that totally makes sense. Well, this is very cool. There's a lot in this. Before when we were chatting, you said there's some things that you learned in here too that were really cool. And definitely some things that I wasn't aware of as well. So very cool stuff. I like the Salarians. I think they are to be feared in a lot of regards, but that doesn't mean that you can't, like an individual and maybe not trust the entire group because they're spying on you or whatever.
Yeah, they must have some shrewd politicians in order to get out of that, because they must have like a WikiLeaks type of scenario every week.
Right. Yeah. Well, man, this has been a great episode. Do you have anything else you want to share before we head out?
Not really. I've been trying to stream on Twitch, Legendary Edition. I don't know if anyone else is having this issue with Xbox, but I'm having a lot of technical difficulties with streaming Twitch on my Xbox, especially with Legendary Edition. Just seems to shut off right away. I have tried troubleshooting it. Troubleshooting has failed. I also noticed I can't take any recordings.
Weird.
No game DVR with Legendary Edition. So maybe it's a game thing. I don't know.
Have you Googled it?
As soon as I can get that,
had that issue?
I haven't Googled that specific issue, but I have Googled the Twitch issue, and I've tried and tried. So I'll keep Googling it. I'll keep trying to troubleshoot it, and as soon as I can get it fixed, I'll get it up and running so I can stream again, guys, because I do want to keep streaming the Legendary Edition. Other than that, I'm looking forward to next week's first patron chat episode.
Yes.
That's going to be a blast.
Yeah, come join us live if you can. We'd love to answer some of your questions and even have you chime in with some of your thoughts during the show in chat, even if you can't join us live on the show. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you to everybody who has signed up already. I know we did that in the middle of the show, but I really genuinely mean it. Thank you so very much. You guys are what allow us to keep doing the show and the other shows that we do. Let's see. We've got the big old contest on Discord. People are logging into the Robots Radio Discord, and if you leave a heart on any of the posts from May 20th onward, then you have a potential to win a $50 gift card for whatever platform you prefer: Steam, Xbox, PlayStation. And originally this was just one because Robots Radio is giving away a gift card, but we had two other people in our community say, I want to give away a gift card too. So we're going to pick 3 winners, and it's really simple. Just search Robots Radio Discord and you'll find a link. You can log right in. You can join us on there, chat with us about Mass Effect, but any post you see on any channel, leave a heart emoji or click the heart emoji that's already there. So your name gets added into that. And that counts as an entry. Every time you do it, that's another entry into the giveaway. And it's amazing because we have across all the shows that I do, we have thousands of listeners, and we only have like a dozen or 24 people like actively doing this, which means that there's a really big chance if you go in there right now and just start doing this, that you will be like a potential winner for this, because the competition isn't that high. Even though we've got like 1,500 people on the Discord, there's only a few people who have really been making a point to like drop those heart emojis. I want to see emojis. They're all the same thing, right? Not quite, but slightly different. The other thing that you can do is you can welcome new members to the Discord. So those also count as entries in the giveaway. So it's all about enjoying the community and, sharing some love and, positivity between people on the Discord and just celebrating you guys for being here. So good luck with that. I hope somebody who really needs this gets it, and maybe you can use it to pick up a copy of, Legendary Edition. So yeah, fingers crossed, guys. Good luck with all of that. But otherwise, I've got all the regular stuff going on. The robotsradio.net site has been updated. It's in the process still of being completely redesigned, but it's better than it was. And if you log on there, you can check out all the different shows, including the list of the current Robots Radio Rocket Club shows, the group that I've been working with, mentoring new creators and some of their stuff. So there's a bunch of cool stuff there as well. So go check it out. Go to robotsradio.net and check out all the different shows. There's lots of good stuff to listen to. But that's what we got going on. Sam, thanks for hanging out again. It's been fun.
Thank you, and love the glasses.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I got new glasses. That's the other thing I've got going on is I got old, so it's not a very strong prescription. Like I can still mostly it's just a little bit sharper. It's like upgrading my monitor by like one step. Does that even make sense? I went from a 1440p monitor to 4K. That's what I did. But it's like everything. So that's fun. But thanks. Yeah, I think they look all right. I've never been a glasses guy, so I have to get used to it.
They actually look identical to mine.
Oh, do they?
Like I'm going to have to wear mine. Yeah. I'm going to have to wear mine one episode.
We can be glasses twins. Yeah, there you go. 4K glasses. That's what it is. All right. And chat, thank you for being here. It's really fun to see you guys chime in as we do the episode. Thanks for being here, guys. All right. Let's wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week with our patrons. Have a good week, everyone. See ya. Thanks for tuning into the Mass Effect Lorecast. We'd love to hear your opinion and thoughts on the lore of Mass Effect. Reach out to us on Twitter at Mass Effect Cast, or check out the Robots Radio Discord. Also, you can send us an email at masseffectlorecast@gmail.com.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.